Well, joining me now is the Australian's Washington correspondent, Adam Creighton. Adam, welcome. I mean, they both seem to be going for the same strategy here in some respect. They're accusing each other of being a threat to democracy. Who wins out in this situation? Putting aside the fact that, we know Joe Biden has a few issues with his mental faculties, who wins out in that debate?
Well, look, I think the truth is at the moment that Trump is winning. I mean, they've been trying this strategy. The Democrats, President Biden has been trying this strategy now for more than 2 years. It seemed to work up until the midterm elections, because as we know, the red wave that was supposed to happen back in late 22 never happened. But since then, of course, Trump's announced his candidacy for the presidency, and he's just soared in the polls. And throughout last year, Joe Biden gave a series of speeches in the same vein as the one that he gave a few days ago, stressing how dangerous another President Trump would be, and the danger of MAGA, so to speak. But it's not worked. So look, I think the Republicans are going to win. We'll find out. The first big test is next week at the Iowa primaries, where we just see the true strength of Donald Trump's support. I mean, he's way ahead in the polls. But we still haven't had a proper vote, so we have to wait and see.
But I can't understand why they keep running this thing, that Trump is a threat to democracy. I mean, we've seen what they've tried to do, of course, to take him off primary ballots, which I would argue is the actual threat to democracy. You're basically saying we can't beat the bloke at the ballot box, so we're going to try and do it through the courts instead. And Biden said this amongst all of his carry-on the other day. Apparently, he understands power. Take a look.
I understand power.
I mean, what does that mean?
Well, I couldn't see the clip, but look, I mean, I think your central point is right. I mean, you've got Colorado and Maine trying to take Donald Trump's name off the ballot, which is the most undemocratic thing that you can imagine. Thankfully, we've heard in recent days that the Supreme Court is going to hear this case, I think mid to late February, and most legal scholars and even ones on the left of politics are saying that it would be good if the court struck down the Colorado decision 9-0. So it remains to be seen what happens there, but I think it's likely the Supreme Court will strike it down.
The US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, he's now warned that the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza could dramatically widen and threaten security in the wider Middle Eastern region. He held an urgent diplomatic meeting in Qatar. Have a look.
Too many Palestinian civilians are suffering from insufficient access to food, to water, to medicine, to other essential supplies. Children, most of all. We continue to raise with Israel the need to do everything possible to facilitate the provision of humanitarian aid to Gaza, and I will do so again when I'm there later this week.
Does this sort of foreshadow that the US might step up its involvement in the conflict, do you think?
Well, look, they certainly don't want to, and I think they're right to be concerned of a broader war emerging from this shocking events of 3 months ago. Of course, Israel is surrounded by Arab nations who historically do not like it at all. I mean, so far they have not joined in the fighting, but there is always a chance that some of them, or at least some of the groups within them, will. And of course, Hezbollah being the main one there in the north in Lebanon. So the US should be very worried. Look, this has no easy solution. I think we all have to hope that Israel finishes its job as quickly as possible and destroys Hamas, and then brings the war to a conclusion. But I mean, personally, I'm somewhat sceptical that that's going to be a goal that's easy to achieve, and so I don't see the war ending soon. Because it's very hard to kill a movement. I mean, it wasn't really a formal government. It's essentially it's a group that hates Israel. And, it's hard to stamp that out.
And just quickly, Adam, before I let you go and bask in the glow of the Golden Globes over there today, you reported last week that the Orca submarine deal could be at risk. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yes, well, look, Congress passed legislation late last year that basically enables the transfer of the nuclear-powered submarines to Australia. And of course, there was much enthusiasm, much excitement back home in Canberra about that, and that is all fair enough. But the fine print of the legislation basically says that the president in the future, when the transfer occurs, which I think is meant to be 2032 for the first one, the first submarine, that the president has to say that it won't undermine the capacity of the US Navy. And I spoke to some Republican advisors, fairly senior guys who I imagine will be part of the next Republican administration. And they said that it would be crazy to transfer the subs at the moment based on the trajectory of US submarine production, which is well below where it should be. And so I just think the article was really just to inject a dose of realism that it's still a good 8 years away before the first sub is transferred, and that's another 2 administrations away. We have no idea who the president's going to be. We have no idea what China's going to be doing at the time. And so I just think we need to be realistic. We need to be cautious about it, and we maybe need to have some sort of contingency.
Yeah, and here we are with a pretty ordinary defence capability ourselves. It would seem we're not the only ones. Adam Creighton, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Caleb. Thank you.